Jake Morrison stood in the observation window of Kepler Station and watched the Vexter ship approach through the darkness of space. The vessel looked like a predator. Its body was sharp and angular, with dark metal that seemed to pull in the light around it. Jake had seen the data files on the Vexter. They were small creatures, no taller than a human child, but they had a reputation that stretched across the galaxy like a warning. Other species called them many names. Some called them monsters. Some called them the ones you never negotiate with. But the traders had started to use another name. They called them honey badgers. Jake understood the comparison. Honey badgers were earth animals known for two things. They were small and they were fearless. They would attack creatures 10 times their size without hesitation. The Vexter were the same way. They were small, but no one in the galaxy wanted to fight them. They had the power to destroy stations, colonies, and even larger ships. They had done it before. But more than that, they had the power to make other species afraid. The diplomatic team was gathering in the conference room on level 3. Jake had received a message an hour ago. Ambassador Krell of the Vexter had agreed to meet with human leadership. It was supposed to be a historic moment. First real contact with the Vexter in 7 years. The last contact had ended with 3 human ships destroyed, and a warning that humans should never enter Vexter space again. Jake made his way through the station corridors. The walls were the same gray metal they had always been. The lights hummed their familiar song. But today, everything felt different. Today, a predator was coming to the table, and Jake would be there to look it in the eye. The conference room was on the upper levels. Through the windows, Jake could see the approach of the Vexter shuttle. It was smaller than the main ship, but still looked dangerous. Its shape was wrong. Nothing about it looked like it was made for peace. Commander Sarah Wright was already there. She was the station commander, and she looked nervous. Her hands moved with small, quick motions as she arranged papers on the table. Ambassador David Lee stood near the window. He had silver hair and a calm face. He had negotiated with a dozen different species in his time. But even he looked careful today. Even he looked like he was thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. 3 security officers stood near the door. They wore the same gray uniforms as everyone else, but their hands were near their weapons. Jake didn't blame them. The Vexter had a reputation to match their appearance. The shuttle landed in the docking bay. Everyone in the conference room felt the station shake slightly when it connected. No one spoke. They waited. The door to the conference room opened. Ambassador Krell entered first. He was exactly as the files described. His body was covered in dark fur that looked almost black. His face was built differently than any human face. His teeth were visible even when his mouth was closed. His eyes were bright yellow, and they moved around the room like a hunter looking for prey. 2 guards followed him. They were smaller than Krell, but looked just as dangerous. Krell did not sit down. He stood at the head of the table, and his voice was a low growl that seemed to vibrate through the air. "You are the leaders of this station?" Krell asked. His voice did not sound friendly. His voice sounded like a warning. "Yes," Commander Wright said. "We are honored to have this chance to meet with you, Ambassador Krell. We hope that together we can find a path toward peace and—" Krell raised his hand. He was not interested in speeches. "You have 30 cycles," Krell said. "In 30 cycles, you will abandon this station. You will abandon all human presence in this sector. You will never return. If you do not follow these instructions, we will remove you. Humans are not welcome in Vexter space. You never will be." The room became cold. Jake felt it in his chest. This was not negotiation. This was a demand. This was a threat. Ambassador Lee leaned forward. "Ambassador Krell, surely we can discuss." "There is nothing to discuss," Krell said. His yellow eyes moved to look at Lee. You understand words, or do I need to make this clearer? 30 cycles. Then we destroy everything you have here. Jake heard Commander Wright take a breath. She was trying to stay calm, but Jake could see her hands shaking slightly. Why? Jake asked. His voice came out before he had time to think. Everyone in the room looked at him. Why? Krell repeated. The growl in his voice became louder. Yes, Jake said. He stood up. He could feel the eyes of the security officers on him. He knew he was breaking protocol, but something in him needed to ask the question. Why do you need this space so badly that you have to destroy us? Why are you so afraid of humans that you won't even talk to us? The room went completely silent. Krell's body became rigid. His lips pulled back from his teeth. For a moment, Jake thought the Vexter might attack him right there in the conference room. Afraid? Krell's voice was like thunder. You think a Vexter fears humans? You are soft. You are weak. You are nothing. Then why the ultimatum? Jake asked. He kept his voice steady, even though his heart was beating very fast. If we are nothing, if we are soft and weak, then why do you care if we are here? Why do you need us to leave? Unless there is something about humans that scares you. Unless there is something about this sector that you need so badly that you are willing to threaten us. Krell took a step toward Jake. Jake did not move. He did not look away from those yellow eyes. You are brave or you are stupid, Krell said. I have not decided which. Maybe both, Jake said. For another moment, no one moved. Then Krell turned away. He walked toward the door. His guards followed him. At the doorway, he stopped and looked back at Jake. 30 cycles, Krell said again. Remember this conversation, human. Remember that you were warned. Then he was gone. The Vexter shuttle disengaged from the docking port. Through the window, Jake watched it move back toward the main ship. Within minutes, both vessels had jumped to hyperspace. Commander Wright let out a long breath. Morrison, that was either the bravest or the dumbest thing I have ever seen. Ambassador Lee said nothing. He was still looking at the empty space where the Vexter ships had been. Jake sat back down. His hands were shaking now. He looked at them and wondered if he had just started a war or prevented one. He wondered what it meant that Krell had called him brave instead of attacking him. He would find out soon enough. He was sure of that. The quiet at Kepler Station did not last long. Within 3 days, alarms began to sound. The alarms screamed through Kepler Station like an animal in pain. Jake Morrison was in the command center when the first explosion ripped through the outer hull. The impact threw him against the wall. His shoulder hit the cold metal, and pain shot down his arm. We are under attack, someone shouted. But everyone already knew this. The screen showed the Vexter ships moving toward the station with deadly purpose. 3 Vexter war vessels surrounded Kepler Station. They were not large ships, but they did not need to be. They were built to destroy, and they were very good at what they were built for. Get the civilians to the lower levels. Commander Wright was shouting orders. Get them to the protected sections. Move, move, move! Jake pulled himself up from the floor. His shoulder was already starting to hurt, but he pushed the pain down. Around him, people were running. Some were going to defensive positions. Some were trying to reach family members. Some were just trying to survive. The second explosion hit the communications array. Jake watched it happen on the main screen. Fire bloomed in the darkness of space where the array had been. That was it. They were cut off now. No way to call for help. No way to reach the other human stations in the sector. They were alone. All hands to battle stations. The station commander ordered. Jake moved through the corridors. His training took over. He knew where he needed to go. The medical bay. If there were going to be casualties, they would need to be ready. He was one of the lead medical officers, and his place was there. The explosions kept coming. The station shook with each one. Lights flickered and went out. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in red. Jake moved faster through the red-lit corridors. He could hear the sound of people screaming. He could hear the wail of alarms. He could hear the sound of the station dying. He almost ran into the Vexter, soldier in Corridor 7. The creature was standing alone in the middle of the hallway. Its dark fur was matted with something that looked like blood. One of its arms hung at a wrong angle. It looked like it had crashed through the station somehow. It looked like it had been separated from its unit. The Vexter soldier saw Jake at the same time Jake saw him. For a moment they both froze. The soldier was young. Jake could see that from the smaller size, from the way his body moved. This was not an old warrior. This was someone who had probably not seen many battles. The soldier's teeth were showing in what Jake assumed was aggression, but there was fear in those yellow eyes. The soldier was hurt. The soldier was alone. The soldier was afraid. "Don't come closer," Jake said. He said it slowly and clearly, even though he did not know if the Vexter understood human speech. "I am not a soldier. I am a doctor," the Vexter soldier hissed. It was a sound that made Jake's skin crawl. But the soldier did not attack. The soldier just hissed again and made a sound like groaning. Jake realized the soldier was hurt badly. The arm that hung at the wrong angle was probably broken. There was blood on the soldier's body. There was pain in his movements. 3 security officers came running around the corner. They saw the Vexter soldier and immediately reached for their weapons. "Stand back," one of them shouted. "We will handle this." "Wait!" Jake moved forward. He put his body between the security officers and the young Vexter soldier. "He is hurt. Look at him. He's just a young soldier, and he's hurt." "He is Vexter," one of the officers said. "He will kill us if he can." "Maybe," Jake said, "but I can help him. We don't have to become murderers just because we are in a war." "Morrison, move aside," the officer commanded. But Jake did not move. He kept his eyes on the young Vexter soldier. He made his hands very slow and very visible. He held his hands up so the soldier could see them. He was not armed. He was not a threat. "I want to help you," Jake said to the young soldier. "My name is Jake Morrison. I am a doctor. Will you let me help you?" The young Vexter soldier made more sounds. Some were angry sounds. Some were sounds of pain. The soldier's body was shaking. From pain or fear or both, Jake could not tell. Very slowly, Jake stepped toward the medical bay. The 3 security officers did not stop him, but he knew they wanted to. He could feel their anger and their fear. Inside the medical bay, Jake worked on the young Vexter soldier. The broken arm was serious, but it was not life-threatening. The blood came from several cuts where metal from the crash shuttle had torn into the soldier's skin. Nothing that would kill him if it was treated properly. The Vexter soldier watched Jake work. His body slowly became less tense. The fear in his yellow eyes did not go away completely, but it became less sharp. "What is your name?" Jake asked as he cleaned a wound on the soldier's shoulder. "Taran," the soldier said. His voice was rough, but the word was clear. "My name is Taran." "All right, Taran," Jake said. "I am going to help you get better. Then we will figure out what comes next." Taran made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been pain. "You help me, but soon your station dies. My people will destroy everything. Then they find me. Then they kill me for losing a shuttle." Jake paused. He looked at the young soldier's face. The soldier was serious. The soldier believed this. "Why would they kill you?" Jake asked. "Because I failed," Taran said. "Because I lost the shuttle. Because I am separated from my unit. These are failures. Among the Vexter, failures are death. Jake continued to work on Tren's wounds. He thought about what the soldier had said. He thought about a culture that was so harsh, so brutal, that failure meant death. He thought about what kind of desperation would drive a people to that kind of thinking. Tarn, Jake said carefully, why does your people need this station so badly? Why are you attacking us? Tarn was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that changed everything. Our world dies, Tarn said. The lands become desert. The water poisons. The sky chokes with dust. My people are dying, and we have nowhere to go. This sector has worlds we can live on. Worlds we can make new homes. But humans are here. So humans must leave or humans must die. There is no other way. Jake understood then? The Vexter were not cruel. They were not evil. They were desperate. They were dying, and they were fighting for survival the only way they knew how. Outside the medical bay, the explosions continued. The station continued to die. But in the quiet of the medical bay, Jake Morrison was beginning to understand something that would change everything. Understanding was the first step toward hope. And hope was the most dangerous weapon of all. The Vexter ships continued to circle Kepler Station like sharks circling wounded prey. The station was damaged, but not destroyed. The humans had managed to repair enough systems to keep the life support running. But they all knew it was only a matter of time. The Vexter would keep attacking until the station fell. 30 cycles was not a deadline. It was a mercy period that had now ended. Jake Morrison sat in the medical bay and watched the monitors. The station command center was in chaos. The communications array was still offline. The only way to contact the Vexter was to broadcast through the open channels that the warships were monitoring. Commander Wright came to the medical bay. She looked tired. She looked like someone who had made a decision that cost her something. I need to talk to you, she said to Jake. Jake stood up. Yes, Commander. You are hiding a Vexter soldier down here, Wright said. It was not a question. Jake did not deny it. There was no point. Yes, ma'am. My security officers told me what you did, Wright said. You put yourself between them and that creature. You could have died. He was a kid, Commander, Jake said. He was hurt. He was alone. Wright looked at Jake for a long moment. Then she said, I am glad you did it. I want you to know that. In the chaos of everything that is happening, I am glad that someone remembered what we are supposed to be. What do you mean? Jake asked. I mean that I have been thinking about what Tieran told you, Wright said. I mean that I have been thinking about a people so desperate, so hopeless, that they would attack a station just to survive. And I have realized something. We have the power to save them. And if we have that power, maybe we have a responsibility to use it. Jake felt something shift in his chest. You want to help them? I want to try, Wright said. But I need your help. I need you to help me talk to their leader. I need you to be there when we make the offer. An hour later, Jake stood in the command center of Kepler Station. Commander Wright was beside him. In front of them was the communications console. The Vexter warships were still in position. Their weapons were still armed. In minutes, they would attack again. Are you ready? Wright asked. Jake nodded. Wright activated the broadcast. Her voice went out across all open channels. It went out to every Vexter ship. It went out to every human on the station. This is Commander Sarah Wright of Kepler Station, she said. I request a meeting with Ambassador Crow. I have information about a Vexter soldier that he will want to hear. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the lead Vexter ship responded. The voice was harsh and growled. We do not meet with humans, the voice said. We destroy humans. I understand, Wright said. But I am telling you that there is a young soldier on this station. His name is Taren. He crashed through our hull during the last attack. My chief medical officer found him, and instead of killing him, the doctor helped him. He fixed his broken arm. He treated his wounds. He saved his life. If you want to see him alive, you will meet with me." Another long silence. Then the voice came back. "You lie." "I do not lie," Wright said. "But you can verify this yourself. Ask about Terran. Ask your people if they know this soldier. Then make your choice." Jake heard it in the background of the transmission. A commotion on the Vexter ship. Voices arguing. Someone saying a name over and over. Tiarn. Tiarn. The voice that came back was different. It was not the voice of a soldier. It was the voice of someone struggling to keep control. "A shuttle is coming," the voice said. "One human. No weapons." "I will be waiting," Wright said. She cut the connection and looked at Jake. "Come with me. I want him to see your face. I want him to understand that there are humans who can choose mercy, even when we have every reason to choose death." The shuttle docked at the Kepler station. The airlock opened. Ambassador Krell came through first, his yellow eyes blazing with an emotion that was too strong to name. Fear, hope, anger, all of them mixed together. Behind Krell were 3 guards, but they did not matter. Krell was looking past them. Krell was looking into the medical bay where Tiarn stood, alive and whole. "Uncle," Tiarn said. The word changed everything. Krell moved through the door so fast that the guards could not follow. He crossed the medical bay in 3 quick strides. He looked at his nephew's fixed arm. He looked at the cleaned wounds. He looked at a young soldier who should have been dead but was alive. "You did this?" Krell asked. He was looking at Jake. His yellow eyes were wet. "Yes," Jake said. "Terran needed help. So I helped him." "You could have killed him," Krell said. "Yes," Jake said. "But I chose not to." Krell made a sound like a roar, but it was not the sound of anger. It was the sound of something breaking open inside him. Something that had been closed for too long. "Why?" Krell asked. "Why would you save the life of someone whose people are destroying you?" Jake thought about this question. He thought about mercy. He thought about hope. He thought about the difference between winning a war and ending one. "Because," Jake said slowly, "you were wrong about humans being weak. We are strong. But our strength is not in our weapons. Our strength is in our ability to see another being in pain and choose to help anyway. Your people are dying, Ambassador. Your world is failing. But there is another way besides conquest and death. Humans have technology to restore ecosystems. Humans have knowledge about surviving in harsh environments. Humans have the will to help rather than to destroy. What if we worked together? What if we saved your world together?" Krell was very still. His hand was on Tren's shoulder. His nephew was looking up at him with hope in his young eyes. "You would do this?" Krell asked. "You would help us after we attacked you?" "Yes," Jake said. "Because mercy is not weakness. Mercy is the strongest thing we have." And in that moment, the war between humans and the Vexter ended. Not because one side defeated the other, but because one human chose compassion instead of revenge. And one Vexter learned that strength and mercy could live in the same heart. The first joint human and Vexter team arrived on the Vexter, homeworld 3 weeks after Ambassador Krell's ship left Kepler station. Jake Morrison stood at the viewpoint of the transport and looked down at a world that was dying. The continents were mostly brown. The oceans were murky. The sky was thick with dust and particles that blocked out much of the sun. This was what desperation looked like from above. This was what had driven the Vexter to attack. Their home was dying, and they had nowhere else to go. "It is worse than the report said," said Dr. Emily Harris. She was a biologist and the lead of the human team. She was looking at the same dead world and trying to imagine how to bring it back to life. "It is worse than my people remember," said Krell. He was standing beside Jake. His voice was quiet. "When I was young, this world was green. There were forests that stretched across the land. There were oceans that were clear and blue. Now look at it. Now we have almost nothing." The team descended through the atmosphere. The air was thick and toxic. The temperature was higher than it should have been. Everything about this planet screamed that it was in crisis. On the surface, more Vexter waited. They were a mix of soldiers and workers. Some looked suspicious of the human presence. Some looked hopeful. All of them looked exhausted. Dr. Harris got to work immediately. She took samples of the soil. She tested the water. She analyzed the air. Behind her, Vexter workers helped her gather information. Beside them, human engineers began to work on the design of the first atmospheric processors. Jake found himself working alongside a Vexter named Voss. Voss was an older soldier, scarred and tough. At first, Voss said very little to Jake. But as they worked together to establish the first settlement, something changed. "I've never worked with a human before," Voss said one day. They were working on the foundation for a water purification system. "I have never worked with a Vexter before," Jake said back. "My people taught me that humans are soft," Voss said. "They said that humans break easily. They said that humans are only good for dying." Jake put down his tool. "And now? Now I see that humans are capable," Voss said. "I see that you work hard. I see that you do not give up. I see that you are willing to help beings that your people do not even know. This is not the behavior of soft beings. This is the behavior of the strong." Jake smiled. "Thank you, Voss." "Do not thank me," Voss said. "Just keep working. We have much to do before this world can live again." The weeks became months. The team expanded. More humans came. More Vexter joined the effort. The atmospheric processors began to work. Slowly, the dust began to settle. Slowly, the air began to clear. Slowly, the world began to breathe again. But more than the physical changes, something deeper was happening. Humans and Vexter were learning to trust each other. They were learning that they had more in common than they had realized. They both wanted their homes to survive. They both wanted their children to live in a better world than their parents had. They both had the will to work toward something better. Tiern became one of the leaders of this new alliance. The young soldier who had crashed through Kepler station began to travel between the human stations and the Vexter settlements. He learned human languages. He taught humans about Vexter culture. He became a bridge between two species that had once been enemies. One day, Tiern found Jake working on the expansion of the water treatment facility. "Ambassador Krell wants to see you," Tiern said. "He says it is important." Jake found Krell in the main settlement. The ambassador was looking at maps of the Vexter homeworld. Maps that showed green spreading across the brown. Maps that showed the transformation that was happening. "I need to tell you something," Krell said. "I need to tell you about the first time my people encountered another species." Jake listened as Krell told a story of the Matharian people. They had visited the Vexter homeworld 2 centuries ago. They had studied the Vexter. They had seen them as a threat. So they had attacked. They had tried to destroy the Vexter before the Vexter could become a problem. The attack had failed, but it had marked the Vexter forever. From that day forward, the Vexter had believed that all other species were enemies. They had believed that the only way to survive was to strike first and strike hard. "Every species we met after that," Krell said, "we approached with weapons. We approached with fear. We approached expecting death. And so we found death. We created enemies from beings that might have been OIs. And then you met humans," Jake said. "And then I met you," Krell said. And you responded to my growls, not with violence, but with compassion. You asked me what I was afraid of. No one had ever asked me that before. I did not know how to answer. And then you saved my nephew. You could have killed him as he deserved. Instead, you saved him. And in saving him, you saved my entire people. Jake did not know what to say. He had not thought of himself as saving anyone. He had just done what seemed right. The galaxy will know about what humans did here, Krell continued. They will know that humans had power over us and chose mercy instead. They will know that humans can see a species that is falling and choose to help instead of conquer. This will change how others see your people. This will change the entire balance of power in this sector of the galaxy. That was not why we did it, Jake said. I know, Krell said. That is why it is so important. You did it because you are the kind of beings who do the right thing even when no one is watching, even when no reward is offered, even when the danger is great. This is the kind of being that other species want as allies. This is the kind of being that the galaxy needs. Jake looked out across the settlement. He could see humans and Vexther working side by side. He could see the beginning of something new, something that had never existed before, a true partnership between species, built on compassion, built on understanding, built on the simple choice to help instead of to harm. The galaxy was changing, and it had all started with one human who refused to kill a wounded enemy. 6 months after the first atmospheric processors began their work, the Vexther homeworld was transformed. The dust was clearing from the sky. The vegetation was beginning to return to the contaminated soil. The water was becoming drinkable again. The world was waking up. But the greatest transformation was not on the planet. It was among the species themselves. Jake Morrison stood in the Hall of Alliance on Kepler Station. The hall had been built new, a symbol of the partnership between humans and Vexther. Representatives from a dozen different species had come to witness what was happening. They came to see the proof of something that most of them had believed was impossible. They came to see cooperation between beings that had once been enemies. The ceremony was brief. Commander Wright presented Jake Morrison with a medal. It was made of gold, and it showed 2 hands clasped together. The human hand and the Vexther hand, equal in size and strength. Jake did not feel like a hero. He felt like someone who had simply done the right thing at the right moment. This medal recognizes the bravery and compassion of Dr. Jake Morrison, Commander Wright said. A voice carried through the hall and was broadcast across the human stations in this sector. 6 months ago, a young Vexther soldier crashed onto this station. The human response could have been to kill him immediately. Instead, Dr. Morrison chose to heal him. That single choice of mercy over violence has led to an alliance that is already changing the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy. We honor him not for his skill as a doctor, but for his wisdom as a being. Dr. Morrison, you have shown us what it means to be truly human. Jake stepped forward and accepted the medal. The humans in the hall applauded. But what surprised him most was the sound from the Vexther, who had also come to witness the ceremony. They made a sound that was not quite an applause, but a low, harmonious growl that filled the entire hall. It was the sound of respect. It was the sound of gratitude. It was the sound of beings learning to recognize value in those who were not their own kind. Ambassador. Krell approached Jake after the ceremony. The ambassador looked different than he had when they first met. His fur was no longer bristled with tension. His yellow eyes held warmth instead of rage. You try to hide your pride, Krell said to Jake. You say you did only what was right. But you must understand something, human. In my culture, what you did was impossible. It goes against everything we teach. It goes against every instinct we were born with. And yet you did it anyway. That is not just bravery. That is transformation. I did what anyone should do, Jake said. No, Krell said firmly. Most beings, given the power of life and death, choose death. It is easier. It is safer. It is the path of fear. But you chose the path of hope. And in choosing hope, you gave my people something we thought was lost forever. You gave us a future. Over the next 6 months, the effects of the human-Vexter alliance began to ripple outward across the galaxy. Other species who had feared the Vexter began to approach them with new interest. They wanted to understand how humans had managed to transform the most feared civilization in the sector into allies. Some species tried to take credit for the alliance. Some tried to claim they had always known that cooperation was possible. But the truth was simple and unchangeable. It had been one human and one young Vexter soldier. It had been compassion in a moment of war. It had been the choice to help instead of to harm that the Vexter culture began to change from within. Tarn became the ambassador for a new way of thinking. He traveled to other Vexter settlements and taught them about human compassion. He taught them that mercy was not weakness. He taught them that cooperation could be stronger than conquest. Other species began to approach humans with new respect. They realized that humans possessed something rare. Humans could look at their enemies and see the suffering underneath the aggression. Humans could choose compassion, even when they had every reason to choose violence. One evening, Jake sat with Krell in a small garden that had been built on the restored Vexter homeworld. The garden was planted with both human and Vexter plants. The two kinds of life were growing together, each supporting the other. I have been thinking about what happened, Krell said. I have been thinking about the moment when you asked me what I was afraid of. At that time, I was angry with you. I thought you were being disrespectful. But now I understand. You were giving me a gift. You were giving me a chance to look inside myself and see that my anger was hiding something. You were giving me a chance to see that fear was driving us toward destruction. Jake looked at the garden around them. And now? Now my people are learning to be something other than what desperation made us, Krell said. We are learning that there are other choices besides fight or die. We are learning that beings from other species can help us without demanding that we become slaves. We are learning that the galaxy is larger than our fear. Every species has to learn that at some point, Jake said. Yes, Krell agreed. But not every species has someone like you to teach them. Not every species has a moment of mercy to show them a different way. You gave my people that gift. History will remember this moment. History will remember that a human chose compassion in a moment of war, and that choice echoed across the galaxy. As the sun set over the restored Vexter homeworld, the sky was filled with birds. Real birds, not machines or weapons. Living creatures that could only exist in a world that was no longer dying. The title of the story took on new meaning now. When the honey badger had growled at the human's response had not been to growl louder or to fight harder. The human's response had been something the honey badger had never expected. The response had been compassion. The response had been understanding. The response had been hope. In the 6 months that followed the ceremony on Kepler Station, Jake Morrison became known throughout the Human Federation as the diplomat who had changed the galaxy. But Jake never saw himself that way. He saw himself as someone who had simply been in the right place at the right moment and had made the right choice. And perhaps that is what all heroes are. They are simply ordinary beings who, when faced with a moment of choice, choose to be better than their fear. They choose to be stronger than their anger. They choose to believe that compassion can transform worlds. The Vexter and humans continued to work together to restore the homeworld. But more than that, they worked together to restore something in themselves. They restored the belief that cooperation was possible. They restored the hope that beings from different worlds could learn to live together. They restored the knowledge that mercy is not weakness, but the greatest strength any being can possess. And all of it had begun with one human who, instead of pulling a trigger, had chosen to help a wounded enemy. It was a small choice in a moment of chaos, but it was a choice that echoed forever.